Kill my baby. I don't wish this on nobody.
Shirley Raines, a founder of Beauty to the Streets, has passed away at the age of 58. She was known to many as Miss Shirley. She was not a traditional celebrity, but she was remembered by countless people. Shirley Raines founded the nonprofit organization Beauty to the Streets, where she dedicated years to providing hygiene services for people experiencing homelessness, including hair washing, haircuts, makeup, and other basic necessities.
How you doing, Queen?
If you are experiencing hunger and Miss Shirley Raines sees you,
Hi, King. You want a snack, baby?
prepared to be greeted and treated like royalty.
Whatever they need, we're a one-stop shop.
For about a decade now, the Compton native has been doing basically whatever she can to help folks who may be going through a hard time.
He'll give you 3.
I'll just take 2. I don't want to be greedy. Thank you.
Her nonprofit, Beauty to the Streets, has millions of followers across social media, and she uses their donations to fund projects like making home-cooked meals to dish out of her vehicle. The name Beauty to the Streets derives from her first mission, when she began giving makeovers to women experiencing homelessness in the Los Angeles area.
That kind of word got around LA, and people started looking for the makeup lady. They started calling me.
Now, if you're wondering why Shirley has dedicated so much time to this mission, she says it's been fueled by a tragedy in her life. In her early 20s, while she was experiencing homelessness herself, her 2-year-old son died suddenly. Understandably, even years later, she says that trauma kept weighing her down.
I'd done all the successful things that people say you're supposed to do to get out the hood, but I was still mentally caught up, with the death of my son. So when I met this community, it just felt like I connected and resonated so well with them. Yes, my love. What you want, chocolate sauce, caramel, or peppermint?
More than 3 decades later, Shirley is now based out of Las Vegas and travels all over to cook for people or pay for their groceries.
You need some groceries?
Yeah.
For the kids and yourself?
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be a limit to what she's willing to do for someone.
I can't save your life. I couldn't save my son's life. But what I can do, I've learned to do that versus mourning what I couldn't do.
I didn't even scratch the surface of all the ways Shirley has helped people, including even putting a woman through nail technician school after Shirley noticed her in line for food with beautiful nails.
On the morning of January 27, 2026, Shirley Raines, known to millions as Miss Shirley, founder of Beauty to the Streets, CNN Hero of the Year, and one of the most recognized advocates for unhoused people in the United States, was found unresponsive inside her home in Henderson, Nevada, following a wellness check initiated by her daughter. She was 58 years old. Paramedics were called. She was pronounced dead. No signs of foul play were immediately identified at the scene. No cause of death was announced that day, or the day after, or in the weeks that followed. The woman who had spent nearly a decade documenting every act of service she performed for strangers, posting to TikTok from Skid Row at dawn, sharing every meal she distributed, every haircut she gave, every moment of dignity she restored, died in near total public silence. No statement from law enforcement, no medical explanation, no timeline. Just an absence where a force of nature used to be, and a community of millions left with nothing but questions. What the Henderson Police Department has publicly stated about the death of Shirley Raines amounts to almost nothing. Following the wellness check on January 27, 2026, a brief statement confirmed that officers responded to a residence in Henderson, Nevada, that a woman was found unresponsive, and that she was pronounced deceased at the scene. The statement noted no signs of foul play and indicated the matter had been referred to the Clark County Medical Examiner's Office for an autopsy and official determination of cause of death. The medical examiner's office has not publicly reported findings, which is not unusual. Clark County's office routinely takes 6 to 12 weeks to finalize autopsy results, and toxicology screening, which is standard in unexpected deaths, can take considerably longer. What is notable, and what Shirley Raines' community has pointed to repeatedly in the weeks since her death, is the contrast between the institutional silence surrounding her passing and the enormous public profile she carried in life. She was a CNN hero. She was on the Time 100 creators list. She had millions of social media followers. And yet, the official response to her death has been identical to that of any private citizen found unresponsive in a Nevada suburb, a single paragraph, and a referral to the medical examiner. Whether that reflects appropriate procedural normalcy or a failure of institutional attention proportionate to her public significance is one of the questions her community continues to raise. Here, we deliver clear, factual, and up-to-date true crime stories. Subscribe and turn on notifications to stay informed on the latest cases and investigations.
I can't thank you guys enough for the outpour of love. Very emotional. Because I'm the one that shows up for people so they don't feel alone. I'm the one that gets up and feeds people so they don't feel alone. I'm the one that says, it's okay, my love, so they don't feel alone. And I have felt so alone in this process until y'all stepped in. And all the outpour of love, the people checking on me and calling me, it means the world to me. I just want to let you guys know I'm okay and, be more visible. Thank you guys so much for the outpour of love. It means the world to know that you're not alone.
Raines was born on December 29, 1967 in Compton, California. She grew up in circumstances that gave her a first-hand understanding of hardship, and her path toward advocacy was not a straight line, but a long, painful arc shaped by personal loss. In 1990, when she was 22 years old, her 2-year-old son Demetrius died of accidental poisoning. That loss, by her own repeated account in interviews, broke something in her that took decades to begin healing. She spoke openly about the years of grief, financial instability, and emotional devastation that followed. She found purpose not through a sudden revelation, but through an accumulation of small choices. In 2017, she joined a church group feeding people on Skid Row in downtown Los Angeles, one of the largest concentrations of unhoused people in the United States, spanning roughly 50 city blocks. She did not intend to stay. She stayed anyway. Within months, she had founded Beauty to the Streets, a nonprofit built on the principle that unhoused people deserved not just food and hygiene supplies, but beauty services, dignity, and the experience of being treated as fully human. She called the people she served her kings and queens. What set her apart from many advocates was her instinct to document everything. She brought cameras to Skid Row. She went live on TikTok while distributing meals at dawn. She talked directly to her followers about the people she met, their stories, their needs, and the systemic failures that put them on the street. Her following grew into the millions. Donations poured in. The organization expanded beyond Los Angeles to other cities. In 2021, she was named CNN Hero of the Year, receiving a $100,000 grant and national television exposure. In 2025, she won the NAACP Award for Outstanding Social Media Personality. Time named her to its Time 100 Creators list. She was, by any measure, at the height of her public reach and influence when she died. She was also a mother of 6. Her personal life was not extensively documented in press coverage. She was far more interested in talking about the people she served than about herself. But interviews and social media posts painted a picture of a woman deeply embedded in family, in faith, and in the daily logistical demands of running an active nonprofit. Friends and colleagues described her in the days after her death as someone who had seemed healthy, who was not on medication, and whose passing came with no warning anyone around her could identify. There is no suspect. No individual has been identified, named, questioned, or detained in connection with Shirley Raines' death. No crime has been established. The Henderson Police Department's initial assessment found no signs of foul play at the scene, which means that as of this writing, the working assumption of law enforcement is that her death was either natural or accidental, not criminal. This is not a technicality. It is the central fact around which everything else in this document orbits. A woman who was described by her family and associates as healthy, active, and not on any medications died suddenly and without warning at 58 years old. The cause has not been explained, and no investigation into any external party's involvement has been opened. What fills the space where a suspect's account would normally appear is something more uncomfortable. public speculation, unanswered questions, and the unresolved tension between the official characterization of her death as non-suspicious and the absence of any explanation for why she died. Her community has not accused anyone. Her family has not accused anyone. But absence of accusation is not the same as absence of questions, and those questions deserve to be named honestly rather than papered over. The documented witness record in the immediate circumstances of Shirley Raines' death is extremely thin, and what exists is almost entirely second-hand, passed through family statements to media outlets rather than given directly to reporters or investigators in any formal capacity.
Her daughter is the person who initiated the wellness check on January 27th. The specific circumstances that prompted her to make that call, whether she had been unable to reach her mother for a particular period, whether she had a specific concern, or whether it was routine, have not been publicly detailed. What is known is that the wellness check was the mechanism by which Shirley Raines was found, and that she was already unresponsive when officers arrived. A family spokesperson confirmed in the days following her death that Shirley had been in good health, was not taking any medications, and had shown no signs of illness that family members were aware of. That statement is significant, not because it resolves anything, but because it deepens the question. A 58-year-old woman in apparent good health, on no medications, with no reported symptoms, found dead by a wellness check. The gap between those facts and the silence of official explanation is where the public's unease lives. No neighbors, no colleagues, and no associates have given documented statements to any media outlet about the hours or days immediately preceding her death. The last public documentation of Shirley Raines alive is her own social media presence, which her family and organization have continued to maintain and memorialize since her passing. In Nevada, any death that is sudden, unexpected, or unattended by a physician is required by law to be reported to the county medical examiner, who then determines whether an autopsy is warranted and what the cause and manner of death will be officially classified as. Clark County has among the busiest medical examiner offices in the country, processing thousands of cases per year. The office does not provide public updates on pending cases. What this means practically is that the investigative record that would normally populate this section, evolving theories, revised timelines, evidence logs, interview summaries, either does not exist in a criminal investigation context or exists within the medical examiner's internal process and has not been made public. The manner of death classification, when it comes, will fall into one of 5 categories used by medical examiners nationally: natural, accident, homicide, suicide, or undetermined. That classification and the documented reasoning behind it will be the closest thing to an official investigative narrative that this case produces, unless the classification prompts further action by law enforcement. No forensic findings have been publicly released as of this writing. The autopsy conducted by the Clark County Medical Examiner's Office has not produced a public report. Toxicology results, which are a standard component of autopsy proceedings in unexpected deaths, and which screen for a wide range of substances including prescription medications, illicit drugs, alcohol, and environmental toxins, have not been released and are not expected to be available quickly. Standard toxicology processing timelines in Clark County range from 6 to 12 weeks for basic panels, with extended screening taking longer. What the absence of findings means in practical terms is this: no one outside the medical examiner's office and potentially her immediate family knows why Shirley Raines died. The cause has not been established publicly. The manner has not been classified publicly. Whether her death was a cardiac event, a stroke, a medication interaction, an environmental factor, or something else entirely remains, as of this document, unknown. The community surrounding her has noted this absence with growing frustration.
For a woman whose entire public identity was built on radical transparency, who documented her own grief, her own failures, her own daily work in real time for millions of people, dying in a silence she did not choose feels, to many who knew and followed her, like a violation of something essential about who she was. The media coverage of Shirley Raines's death has been extensive in volume and remarkably uniform in tone. Every major outlet that covered her passing, and most did given her public profile, reported the same basic facts: found unresponsive, wellness check, Henderson, Nevada, no signs of foul play, cause of death pending. The coverage was almost universally reverential, focused on her legacy and her work, and conspicuously short on any scrutiny of the circumstances of her death. This is understandable. She was a beloved public figure who died suddenly. The impulse of coverage in those conditions is tribute, not investigation. But the uniformity of the coverage has had an effect. It has largely foreclosed public conversation about the unanswered questions in favor of a clean narrative of a hero's passing. The reality of the case is that the cause of death of a 58-year-old woman in apparent good health remains officially unexplained weeks after her death. The gap between narrative and reality is not, in this instance, a gap created by investigative failure or prosecutorial overreach, as it is in many true crime cases. It is a gap created by the natural human desire to honor someone's memory without complicating it. But Shirley Raines spent her life insisting that uncomfortable truths be looked at directly rather than avoided. Applying anything less than that standard to the circumstances of her own death would be, in a meaningful sense, a failure to honor what she actually stood for. This section does not exist. No charges have been filed. No grand jury has been convened. No preliminary hearings have been scheduled. No defendant has been arraigned. There is no courtroom examination because there is no court case. If the medical examiner classifies Shirley Raines's death as natural or accidental, there almost certainly never will be. If the classification is homicide, that determination would trigger a criminal investigation and potentially, eventually, a prosecution. If the classification is undetermined, the most ambiguous outcome, it would be returned to law enforcement to decide whether further inquiry is warranted. As of this writing, the legal mechanism currently engaged is the administrative process of the medical examiner's office, which is not a proceeding, does not have parties, does not have arguments, and does not produce a verdict. There is no final legal outcome. This case has not concluded. It has, in a legal sense, not properly begun. The closest thing to a conclusion that currently exists is the Henderson Police Department's initial on-scene assessment of no signs of foul play, a finding that it is important to understand is not a determination of cause of death, not a ruling out of all possible non-natural causes, and not a final statement by any authority with the jurisdiction or the information to make one. It is an observation made by patrol officers at a scene before forensic processing had occurred. The actual conclusion of this case, whatever form it takes, will come from the Clark County Medical Examiner's Office, likely in the spring of 2026. Whether that conclusion satisfies the public, her family, and the millions of people who followed her work remains entirely to be seen. In a conventional true crime case, this section maps the irreconcilable positions of prosecution and defense, victim's family and convicted defendant, competing forensic experts, and rival investigative theories. In the case of Shirley Raines, there are not yet sides in that formal sense. What there are instead are a set of unresolved tensions that the available facts do not resolve and that no official statement has addressed. Her family and her community want to know why a woman described as healthy and medication-free died suddenly at 58. That is not an accusation, it is a question, and it is a completely reasonable one. The official record has not answered it. Law enforcement has characterized the scene as non-suspicious, but has not explained what that characterization is based on, what was examined, and what was ruled out. Non-suspicious is not the same as explained. The medical examiner has the information that would resolve most of these questions and has not released it, which is procedurally normal and simultaneously, for the people who loved Shirley Raines, profoundly unsatisfying. What the absence of findings means in practical terms is this: no one outside the medical examiner's office and potentially her immediate family knows why Shirley Raines died. The cause has not been established publicly. The manner has not been classified publicly. Whether her death was a cardiac event, a stroke, a medication interaction, an environmental factor, or something else entirely remains, as of this document, unknown. The community surrounding her has noted this absence with growing frustration. For a woman whose entire public identity was built on radical transparency, who documented her own grief, her own failures, her own daily work in real time for millions of people, dying in a silence she did not choose feels, to many who knew and followed her, like a violation of something essential about who she was. The media coverage of Shirley Raines' death has been extensive in volume and remarkably uniform in tone. Every major outlet that covered her passing, and most did given her public profile, reported the